Picture this, right? You finally shut your laptop at the end of an incredibly taxing workday.
Oh yeah, that moment of finality.
Exactly. The cooling fan on your computer winds down, the Slack notifications are finally muted,
Oh,
and your physical house is actually quiet.
right, the external noise stops.
But your mind,
Mm.
your mind is, well, it's practically vibrating. There is this loud, familiar, high-frequency hum of anxiety just echoing in your head.
Oh, I know that hum intimately.
Right. It's a relentless loop of, the tasks you didn't finish, the emails you phrased slightly wrong, and those looming, terrifying deadlines waiting for you tomorrow morning.
Which creates a very specific modern kind of exhaustion, I think. Because, you haven't been doing physical labor in a field all day.
Yeah, you've just been sitting in a chair.
Right. Yet your bones feel heavy. And that is a deep psychological drain. It results from how we process the weight of our responsibilities.
And, I mean, the prevailing advice out there usually just treats the symptom rather than the disease.
Absolutely.
People will tell you to take a vacation or download a new time-blocking app or just do some deep breathing. But for this deep dive, we are examining a stack of excerpts from a really fascinating piece titled The Inner Ishvara, Finding Divine Companionship in Daily Labor.
It's a fantastic text.
It really is. And the mission today is to explore a radical paradigm shift drawn from ancient wisdom. It challenges the fundamental idea that you have to carry the heavy, isolating burden of your career and your daily life entirely by yourself.
Because that solo burden is exactly how most of us operate by default. I mean, we have completely compartmentalized our existence.
Yeah, like putting things in neat little boxes.
Exactly. We view our inner spiritual life as completely severed from our outer professional labor. The two realms, well, they just aren't allowed to speak to one another.
So the hook here, the core question we are really unpacking today, is actually quite provocative.
Let's hear it.
What if the root of your burnout isn't actually your workload? What if the exhaustion comes entirely from the lonely way you're trying to carry it?
Oh, that is a huge shift in perspective.
Right, because as I was reading through these sources, I realized our modern approach to spirituality is it's essentially like hiring a corporate crisis management consultant.
Okay, that analogy frames the problem perfectly. We basically treat the transcendent like a temporary contractor.
We really do. Think about our behavior. We only call on the divine when the project is failing, or, when we are staring down a massive deadline we cannot possibly meet.
Or when our personal lives are just falling apart.
Exactly. We bring the consultant in, we plead for help, we negotiate, we're like, just get me through this Tuesday strategy meeting and I swear I'll be a better person.
Right, the classic bargaining phase.
Yeah. And then, the very second the crisis passes, we fire the consultant, we clock them out.
We show them the door.
We go right back to trying to run the whole company of our lives by ourselves, at least until the next fire breaks out. It is a strictly transactional relationship, and maintaining that dynamic is just incredibly taxing.
It demands an immense amount of psychological energy. And the source material actually refers to this phenomenon as the coworker God.
The coworker God, that's so accurate.
It is. Because when you treat the divine as a temporary assistant to bargain with, you inevitably cause a severe spiritual whiplash within your own mind.
Spiritual whiplash.
Mm-hmm.
That perfectly describes the emotional hangover of moving from complete panic to desperate prayer and then right back again.
Because you are swinging violently between two irreconcilable extremes, right? On one side of the pendulum, you have this intense anxiety-driven self-reliance.
Right.
That is the ingrained belief that every outcome, every success, every failure rests solely on your shoulders.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And then when the pressure exceeds your capacity, the pendulum swings wildly to the other side, to desperate transactional faith. So the exhaustion you feel at the end of the workday isn't merely the result of answering emails.
No, it's something deeper.
Right. It is the energetic cost of constantly managing that volatile on and off relationship with the universe, rather than just learning how to rest within it.
So we desperately need an alternative approach, obviously.
Yeah.
And the source material points us toward the Bhagavad Gita for a framework to solve this.
Yes, a very profound framework.
Now, before reading this text, I always imagined ancient spiritual documents as these, tranquil, passive meditation manuals.
Sure, most people do.
Like, I pictured some serene sage speaking in a quiet ashram by a babbling brook.
Which is a very common assumption, but it completely ignores the intense historical and narrative context of the Gita itself.
Right.
The reality is the total opposite of a quiet retreat. The text is actually a frantic, high-stakes conversation delivered in the middle of a literal battlefield.
Wait, a literal battlefield?
Yes, Kurukshetra. It's happening mere moments before a catastrophic war is about to begin. You have two massive armies facing each other, conch shells are blaring, and the threat of impending death is everywhere.
Oh, wow, so it's incredibly tense.
Exactly. And the main figure, Arjuna, is experiencing a profound psychological breakdown. His bow is slipping from his hands, his skin is burning. He is, for all intents and purposes, having a full-blown panic attack.
That is the ultimate high-pressure environment. It's a complete crisis of action.
Which is why it matters so much for us today. The framework wasn't designed for a monk sitting in a cave. It was specifically designed for moments of extreme anxiety, overwhelming conflict, and debilitating decision paralysis.
Okay, that makes it weirdly relatable.
It does. That context makes its psychological insights perfectly applicable to our modern, high-stakes workplace stress. It is a philosophy built for the trenches of daily life.
But that raises a massive logical question for me. Like, if the whole coworker God approach is causing this exhausting spiritual whiplash, how does a text born in a literal war zone offer any kind of peace for my Tuesday morning status meeting?
It's a fair question.
Like, how do we bridge the gap between ancient combat and just finding peace at an office desk?
Well, to bridge that gap, we have to recognize that the text moves the conflict from the external battlefield to the internal one.
Oh, okay.
The very first step to finding that peace is completely shifting our understanding of where the divine actually resides.
Which requires dismantling how our egos operate, right?
Yeah.
The text calls it ahankara.
Ahankara, yes. But it is vital to understand that ahankara does not just mean ego in the sense of being boastful or, arrogant.
Right, it's not just bragging about a promotion.
No, not at all. In this philosophical context, ahankara is the illusion of the solo burden. It is the deeply ingrained, false psychological belief that we are the sole doers of our actions, and therefore we are the absolute sole bearers of the results.
So ahankara is that 3.0 a.m. panic where your brain is screaming, if I don't figure out the supply chain issue, the whole department collapses, and it is entirely my fault.
That is the textbook definition of ahankara at work. It completely isolates you.
It's awful.
To combat this, the Gita provides a radical counter-narrative in chapter 18, verse 61. It completely dismantles the idea of being alone with your anxiety by stating that the Supreme Lord dwells in the Hridesh.
Hridesh.
Yes, which translates to the region of the heart of all living beings.
Not up in the clouds looking down, literally stationed in the core of your being.
Which carries staggering implications for how we view our daily labor. I mean, it means you are never actually laboring in isolation.
That's a comforting thought.
Every late-night worry, every spike of cortisol before a public presentation is witnessed, shared, and supported by this internal presence.
And the sources emphasize that this internal presence isn't sitting there with a clipboard, just judging your performance.
No, not at all.
The text actually describes this presence as a true dharmic friend. I mean, think about the healthiest friendship you have ever had.
Right, someone you can really rely on.
Yeah, someone who listens deeply without judgment, offers grounding truth rather than just flattening your ego, and quietly provides strength when you feel like collapsing. That is the nature of the inner Ishvara.
A supportive companion rather than a critical internal auditor.
Which brings up a really surprising fact from the text. Krishna, the representation of the divine in the Gita, isn't acting as a general sitting safely on a throne, barking orders at Arjuna.
That's right.
He takes the role of Arjuna's literal chariot driver. It is a position of profound service and guidance through the chaos of the battlefield.
It's a beautiful image of humility and support.
It really is. And the source text actually has this incredible image that made this whole concept click for me. It compares operating under ahankara, that solo burden illusion, to desperately trying to push a stalled car up a steep hill by yourself.
Oh, that's a vivid picture.
Yeah, you are terrified, your muscles are burning, your shoes are slipping on the asphalt, and you think if you let go for even 1 millisecond, the car's going to roll backward and crush you.
A state of perpetual terror, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But recognizing the inner Ishvara is like suddenly realizing a massive tow truck has been hitched to the front of your car the entire time.
Yes.
It has been pulling the heavyweight. You just couldn't see the chain because you were so focused on your own pushing. All you actually have to do is get into the driver's seat, put your hands on the wheel, and steer.
The visual of the tow truck perfectly captures the dynamic because you still have a critical role. I mean, steering requires immense focus and engagement in the action.
Right, you can't just fall asleep at the wheel.
Exactly. But the crushing existential pressure of generating all the forward momentum is no longer solely yours.
Okay, I love the analogy, but let me push back on how we actually apply this.
Sure, go ahead.
When I'm sitting in that driver's seat, my own anxious thoughts are incredibly loud. My brain is screaming, what if I steer into a ditch? What if the tow truck's chain snaps?
Very natural fears.
So how do we practically differentiate between the loud spiraling voice of our own ahankara and the subtle, quiet guidance of this inner co-pilot?
Discerning between those two voices is the ultimate human struggle. To answer how we hear that subtle guidance, we really have to look at the mechanism of how we engage with our environment.
Okay.
We have to understand a concept the text calls Maya and how we interact with the machine of our careers.
Wait, calling it a machine implies an automated, predetermined track. Are we just cogs in this scenario, blindly spinning while something else pulls the levers?
No, not cogs, but operators who misunderstand the machinery. That same verse, 18.61, states that living entities are seated as if on a machine made of material energy, and that's Maya.
Maya is the machine.
Basically, Maya is the mechanism that creates the illusion of complete control. Our workplace anxiety almost always stems from fighting this reality. We desperately believe that if we just work a little harder, if we micromanage every single variable, we can force the universe to yield the exact outcomes we desire.
But I mean, how does Maya trick us into believing that? Why is our brain so wired to fall for the illusion of control?
Simply put, intermittent reinforcement.
Like a slot machine.
Exactly like a slot machine. Sometimes you push hard on a project, you control every variable, and you actually get the promotion or secure the client. The machine occasionally yields the result you wanted.
And we get a hit of dopamine.
Yes, that intermittent success chemically hooks your brain into believing, I am the absolute architect of my destiny. I control the machine.
Wow, yeah.
So when you inevitably face a situation you cannot control, the resulting friction causes massive anxiety. The Gita suggests that while we must act, the ultimate machinery of the complex material world is directed by forces far beyond our singular ego.
So, if the machine is largely out of my ultimate control, how do I stop fighting it without just, throwing my hands up and quitting?
Through the practice of karma yoga.
Okay, karma yoga.
Right. Karma yoga is the art of performing your duties with absolute, rigorous excellence, but completely surrendering your attachment to the results. You offer the effort itself to the divine, rather than hoarding the outcome for your ego.
The sources use a beautiful analogy for this. They say, imagine a master musician playing incredibly complex, gorgeous music in an entirely empty room.
That's a great way to picture it.
They aren't playing to secure a lucrative record deal. They aren't constantly looking over their shoulder to see if an audience is applauding. They're pouring their entire soul into the technique purely for the love of the music itself. The action is the reward, not the validation that follows it.
A perfect demonstration of karma yoga. And there is a vital, often surprising caveat in the text regarding what kind of action you should be performing.
Oh, what's that?
The Gita explicitly warns that trying to do someone else's job perfectly, what it calls paradharma, is psychologically dangerous and creates dysfunction.
Meaning twisting yourself into someone you aren't just to climb the corporate ladder.
Yes.
Like a brilliant, empathetic creative forcing themselves to become a ruthless, data-obsessed middle manager simply because the salary is higher.
Precisely the modern equivalent. The text states that doing your own natural work, your svadharma, even if you perform it imperfectly, is the only true path to success.
It's about authenticity.
Yes. When you align your labor with your inherent nature, you stop fighting the friction of the machine. You begin to flow with the material energy rather than constantly grinding against it.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here because this brings up a massive tension for me, one that honestly borders on spiritual bypassing.
Let's hear it.
If the Supreme is the one ultimately directing this grand machine, and I'm supposed to just surrender all the results of my work, isn't that just a highly convenient psychological crutch for failure?
It can definitely sound like that at first.
It sounds like I could say, oh, I totally blew the quarterly sales presentation, but hey, I surrendered the results to the divine, so it's all good. Like, why should I strive for excellence or care about my deadlines at all if the outcome isn't mine?
That is a critical pushback, and it highlights the most common misunderstanding of karma yoga. Karma yoga does not advocate for passivity, laziness, or apathy. It demands the exact opposite: rigorous, intense, highly focused action. Remember your own analogy. You are still in the driver's seat of the car, and steering requires constant vigilance. You cannot just take your hands off the wheel and close your eyes.
So the effort still belongs to me.
Mhm.
The surrender is only of the results.
Yes. And the psychological mechanism behind why this works is really fascinating. Think about your daily mental bandwidth. How much of your psychological energy do you waste on the anxiety of the outcome? What will my boss think of this email? Will I get the bonus? What if the client hates the pitch?
Honestly, probably 60 to 70% of my mental energy on any given workday is tied up in future tripping about outcomes I can't guarantee.
Which leaves only 30% of your energy for the actual work.
Ouch. Yeah.
Right. Trusting the inner companion and surrendering the result actually frees up all that wasted, anxious bandwidth. It allows you to pour 100% of your focus into the craftsmanship of the task itself.
Wow, that shifts everything.
You are not bypassing responsibility. You are actually transforming yourself into a far more effective worker because you are no longer paralyzed by the fear of failure.
That makes total sense when you break down the cognitive load.
Yeah,
It is the difference between playing a sport to win versus playing not to lose.
that's a great parallel.
When you are terrified of making a mistake, you play tight, you hesitate, you perform worse. When you let go of the fear of losing, you play a much more expansive, effective game.
You enter a state of flow, completely unburdened.
Okay, I can see how karma yoga beautifully handles the work I actually control. The code I write, the spreadsheets I build, the pitches I design.
The solitary tasks, yeah.
But the machine of our careers isn't just a solo endeavor. Half my burnout doesn't come from my tasks. It comes from the people I am forced to collaborate with.
Ah, yes. The human element.
Does the Gita's framework just collapse when a profoundly toxic coworker enters the picture?
It doesn't collapse at all. It actually provides the blueprint for handling them.
Huh.
This is where recognizing the internal Ishvara becomes truly transformative.
How so?
Well, if the divine resides in the Hridasha, the heart space of all beings, that must fundamentally alter how we view our colleagues.
Even the guy who constantly talks over everyone in meetings.
Especially him. The Gita teaches a principle called sama, which translates to equanimity. It means treating all individuals with an underlying respect because you recognize that the exact same divine spark animating you is animating them.
And the text defines this equality in a really radical, almost jarring way. It has absolutely nothing to do with corporate hierarchy or pay grades.
No, it advocates for what it calls equal vision. The specific verse states that a truly wise person sees the exact same eternal soul in a highly learned scholar, a cow, an elephant, and an outcast.
Translated to the modern office, that's like saying the untouchable CEO in the corner suite and the tired intern who forgot to refill the coffee machine share the exact same eternal essence.
Yes. And when you adopt that equal vision, the workplace stops being merely a site of economic exchange or, ruthless office politics.
It changes the whole environment.
It transforms into a daily spiritual laboratory. It becomes the exact testing ground where you practice recognizing the divine in yourself and in others. When you force yourself to interact with the eternal essence behind someone's temporary, irritating personality, your interpersonal anxiety naturally diminishes.
If I'm honest, I have a major issue with how this translates to reality.
Go on.
This sounds incredibly beautiful in theory, but what happens when equanimity meets toxicity? Is it actually possible to maintain this peaceful internal companionship in a corporate culture that explicitly rewards cutthroat behavior?
It's a valid concern.
Like, if I have to see the divine in everyone, does that mean I'm required to just smile, be a doormat, and quietly tolerate an abusive boss who steals my ideas?
That is the danger of misapplying the philosophy entirely. Seeing the divine in someone absolutely does not require accepting, enabling, or submitting to their harmful behavior. Again, ground this in the context of the Gita itself. Where is Arjuna standing?
He is standing in the mud of a battlefield.
And he is compelled by Krishna to physically fight a war against those who are acting unrighteously. He has to stand up against toxicity and systemic injustice, even though he literally has family members and former teachers on the opposing side.
So setting firm boundaries and pushing back against a toxic boss is not a failure of spirituality. It is the necessary action you are required to take.
It is part of your dharma. Sometimes your inherent duty is to look someone in the eye and say, no, this behavior is entirely unacceptable, or even to orchestrate an exit from a toxic company.
So it's about the internal state during the conflict.
Exactly. The crucial difference lies in how you take that action. You do it with internal equanimity. You fight the unrighteous behavior, you draw a hard boundary, but you refuse to let consuming hatred for the person destroy your own inner peace.
That's powerful.
You can oppose their actions without carrying the poison of resentment in your own heart.
That is a massive tightrope walk, separating the behavior from the person, but I see the profound value. It prevents you from becoming toxic yourself in response to their toxicity. But that brings up one final tension for me. If I start walking into the office every morning, truly believing that the Supreme Lord of the universe is acting through me, couldn't that easily breed massive arrogance?
How do you mean?
Like, I am an instrument of the divine, therefore my marketing strategy is infallible.
It's a humorous image, but ego inflation is a genuine risk if the concepts are just cherry-picked.
Right.
However, true recognition of the inner Ishvara achieves the exact opposite. Profound humility, because remember the prerequisite. It requires the dissolution of ahankara, the illusion that you are the sole author of your actions.
Right, the solo burden.
When you internalize that the exact same divine presence providing you with an innovative idea is also working through the lowest-ranking employee in the building, any notion of personal superiority completely collapses. You cannot be arrogant when you intimately know you are not the sole generator of your success.
You remember that you are just the one steering the car. You aren't the tow truck pulling the weight.
A vital distinction that keeps the ego in check.
This entire framework circles back to a really surprising fact from the sources that just jumped off the page for me. The text states plainly that the mind can be your absolute greatest friend, or it can be your most destructive enemy.
And the deciding factor between those two realities rests entirely on whether the mind is tethered to that divine presence or if it is left isolated to its own chaotic, ego-driven panic.
So how do we actually do this? How do we tether the mind and make it a friend? The sources give us 3 incredibly practical takeaways to start implementing this shift in our gritty daily reality.
Let's break those down.
First is what they call the inner check-in. The application here is simple but profound. Before you click join on that terrifying Zoom call where you know you're about to be interrogated about quarterly numbers, or maybe right when you close your laptop in the evening, you take just 60 seconds.
Just 1 minute.
You intentionally shift your attention inward to that thrid dash, the heart space. And the key rule is you don't ask for anything. No bargaining, no crisis consultant negotiations. You just take a breath and quietly recognize that you are not laboring alone.
You are shifting from a transactional relationship to a relational one. Acknowledging the companion changes the baseline frequency of your nervous system.
Yes, it drops the shoulders immediately.
Exactly.
The second step is to redefine success. We have to fundamentally change the metric of what constitutes a good day at the office. Instead of judging the day by saying, today was good because I controlled all the variables, the client signed, and I hit all my targets, we shift the metric.
What do we shift it to?
We say, today was a good day because I performed my duties with excellence, and I maintained my internal equanimity, regardless of what the external results were.
Which perfectly aligns with the practice of karma yoga. You evaluate yourself solely on the quality of your effort and the stability of your peace, entirely independent of the crowd's applause.
And the third practical step, which I guarantee is the hardest one for most of us, is the equanimity practice.
Oh, this one is tough.
It is. The challenge for this week is to pick that one highly annoying colleague. We all have one. The next time you are forced to interact with them, try to mentally separate their abrasive, difficult behavior from their eternal essence.
Look past the ego.
Try to actively visualize that equal spark in them and just observe if that internal shift in your own perception changes the outward dynamic of the conversation.
It almost inevitably does, because when you stop reacting to their inflamed ego with your own inflamed ego, the entire frequency of the interaction has room to de-escalate.
So we started this deep dive thinking about that quiet, anxiety-filled room at the end of a long workday, that crushing physical sensation of carrying a heavy, isolating burden all by yourself, terrified that the sky is falling.
A feeling we all know too well.
The ultimate beauty of discovering the inner Ishvara is the realization you never actually were alone. The crisis consultant isn't a consultant at all. They have been your closest, quietest friend, sitting right there in the passenger seat with you the entire time.
It is a profound, life-altering relief to finally realize you do not have to generate all the power of the universe yourself.
It really is the ultimate exhale.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up our analysis of these texts, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on. Something that pushes this entire concept to its absolute logical conclusion.
Let's hear it.
We have talked extensively today about the peace that comes from surrendering the results of your labor and deeply trusting this inner companion. But if you actually do that, if you truly completely detach from the need for external validation, from the hunger for promotions, from the applause of your peers and the fear of your critics, what happens to your ambition?
That's a huge question.
If the deep, churning anxiety of failure is no longer the hot fuel driving you forward, what will actually motivate you to get out of bed and step onto your own battlefield tomorrow morning?
That is the ultimate question of finding purpose beyond panic, isn't it?
It is something fascinating to reflect on during your next inner check-in. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember who's in the passenger seat.